So in the last lecture, when we talked about filter direction, we talked about how important that concept was and how easy it could be to make mistakes by accidentally pulling in the wrong filter fields into a pivot. So luckily, Power Pivot has controls for that. And in fact, we can make some adjustments right in our data model that will help prevent these errors from taking place. So it's called hiding fields from client tools. And basically, you can just right click any field in a table within the data model and click this hide from client tools option. Now, when you do that, you essentially make that column or make that field invisible to tools outside of the data model itself. So tools like Power Pivot, for instance. And what this will do is help prevent users from accidentally filtering or segmenting on invalid fields. And it can also be a nice way to just simply hide irrelevant metrics out of view. So pro tip here, this is an important one, always hide the foreign key columns in your data tables to prevent users from accidentally filtering on them. So just like we showed in the last video, you would never want to filter on the date in your data tab. You always want to filter on your date in the calendar lookup. In a similar sense, you never want to filter on your product ID, your store ID, your customer ID within your data tables. You want to filter on those IDs in the lookup tables. And that way, any other related table is going to filter properly as well. So there's really no circumstance, at least that I can think of, where you would ever want users to filter on a foreign key column from a data table. So let's jump into our data model and make some of these adjustments. Okay, here we are in our Food Mart data model. First step, let's just follow the pro tip from the last lecture and just make sure we've got all of our lookup tables up top and that we've got our data tables at the bottom, just again to help us visualize this whole concept of filters flowing downhill or downstream. So, we can do something kind of like this. This is like totally up to you at this point, how you want to design it. But I think something like this makes a lot of sense. So I've got my two data tables all the way down at the bottom. We can see in all of the relationships, those arrows are all flowing down from lookups to data tables. So anything that's filtered up here above this line, basically above my data tables, anything filtered up there is going to flow down and impact any related tables. Now I have to emphasize related because remember, something like customer lookup, because there is no relationship with returns, there will never be any way to get customer data to talk to return data. So in that case, it's not a matter of filter direction, it's just a matter of no relationship exists whatsoever. So there we go. The structure, I think, looks fine. You can design it as much or as little as you'd like. And now let's go ahead and follow that second pro tip to actually hide the foreign keys in our two data tables. So remember, the foreign keys are anything we're using to match to lookups. So transaction date, right click, hide from client tools, stock date, hide from client tools, product ID, customer ID, and store ID, so that the only thing left is the actual quantity metric here. And then similar story with returns. I'm going to hide the return date, product ID, and the store ID. So it feels a little weird at first when you do this because it feels like you're kind of making these tables useless, but you're really not, because if you want to filter the return data on date, you do that by controlling date right here. The impact is identical as far as these two tables are concerned. So we're not losing any functionality whatsoever. We're just preventing potential mistakes from being made. And like everything with Power Pivot, none of this is set in stone. We can turn them back on and unhide them from client tools, either here in the diagram view, or if we go to the Home tab and jump to Data View, see how these columns have now been grayed out? That's because they are now hidden from client view, but you can right click on a header and unhide from client tools there as well. So multiple ways to accomplish the same thing, which is a theme that you'll see quite a bit with these BI tools. So really helpful tip there, hiding fields from client tools.